All right, so this is 7.8. We're going to learn about Kramer's rule today, which Kramer's rule is another way to solve system of equations. Miss Meadows left a little note there, said you are welcome, with a smiley face. Because this way, it's not like super quick and simple, but it is easier than what we've done in the past. So definitely easier than 7.4 when we solved systems of equations with matrices. So we're still using our matrices, it's just a different way. We're going to use the discriminant to help us with our systems of equations. So, if we had the system of equation here, we have our coefficient matrix, so that just the coefficients in our matrix here. And then we want to find the discriminant of that matrix, so the discriminant of our coefficient matrix. And then we also want to find the discriminant with our answers. So if we see here our answers 3 and 8, when solving for x, we replace our x column with our answer column. And when solving for y, we place our y column with the answer column. So when solving for a variable, replace the variable column with the answer column. Super important that we do that. So in one problem, we are going to find 3 different discriminants. So let's look at our first example. First thing we want to do is put this in a matrix. So our matrix of the original is 4, 3, -2, -5. And we want to find the discriminant of this. So what do we have to do to find the discriminant? So what did we do yesterday? Yep, majors minus minors. So 4 times -5 would be what? -20. Minus 3 times -2? -6. So -20 minus a -6. What happens to that minus a negative? Becomes +6. So what's 20 plus 6? -14. So our discriminant of the original is -14. Now we need to find the discriminant with our x column replaced. So we are just replacing the x column with our answers. So we have 10 and 11 in our x column. And then everything else stays the same. So -2, -5 in our y column. And again, we find the discriminant. So we do our majors minus the minors. So what's 10 times -5? -50 minus 11 times -2? -22. So -50 plus 22 would be what? -28. So this is our discriminant with the x column replaced. Now we do the same thing with our y column replaced. So the x column stays the same as it was in the original, 4, 3. And then the y column gets replaced with our answers, so 10 and 11. Next, we need to find the majors minus the minors. So 4 times 11, 44, minus 3 times 10, 30. 14. So once we do this, our answer to our system of equation is d sub x over d, comma d sub y over d. So what's our d sub x? Negative 28. Negative 28. What's our d? Negative 14. And what's our d sub y? 14. And what's our d? Negative 14. So what's negative 28 divided by negative 14? Positive 2. And what's 14 divided by negative 14? Negative 1. So this is our answer to our system of equations. But in your homework, if it says use Kramer's rule, you got to do it this way. You have to find your discriminant of the original, your d sub x, your d sub y, and divide them. Any questions here? All right, next. We're going to use Kramer's rule for a 3 by 3 matrix. So first thing we're going to do is write our original matrix. What would be the first row in our original matrix? Just our coefficients. What are our coefficients here?
Negative 1, 0, and 1.
Awesome. Negative 1, 0, 1. What about our second row?
0, negative 1, 1.
Second row?
Oh, 2, negative 1, 1.
2, negative 1, 1. And our third row?
0, 1, negative 3.
0, 1, negative 3. What do we need to do to find the discriminant of a 3 by 3? What's the first step?
First two columns on the outside.
Rewrite the first two columns. We have negative 1, 2, 0, 0, negative 1, 1. Then we find our majors minus the minors. So what is negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 3?
Negative 3.
Negative 3.
Wait, did you do the outside?
Okay, so negative 3. And then 0 times 1 times 0? 0. And 1 times 2 times 1?
2.
2. So this would give us what? Negative 3 plus 0 plus 2? Negative 1. Now we have to subtract the minors. So our minors would be these three diagonals. So it's 0 times negative 1 times 1? 0. What is 1 times negative 1? Negative 1. And negative 3 times 2 times 0? 0. So 0 minus 1 plus 0? Just negative 1. So we have 1 minus negative 1. What is this? What happens to the minus negative? Becomes a plus. What's negative 1 plus 1? 0. So if we then find what d sub x is, d sub y, and d sub z, we find d sub x, d sub y, d sub z, divide all of these by d, and we got 0 for d. Can we divide anything by 0? What happens if we get 0 in the denominator? Undefined. Doesn't work. So what do you think our answer to this system of equations is? No solution. No solution. All right, last example. So first thing we want to do is rewrite our coefficient matrix. So what would our first row of coefficients be? First row.
Negative 1, 2, -3.
-1, 2, -3. What's our second row?
2, 0,
2, 0, 1. And our third row?
1. 3, -4, 4.
3, -4, 4. What do we do next? Rewrite the first two columns. And then we find our majors minus the minors. So these are our three majors. What is -1 times 0 times 4? 0. What's 2 times 1 times 3? 6. And -3 times 2 times -4? 24. 6 plus 24? 30. So that's the sum of our majors. Now let's look at our minors. So 3 times 0 times -3? 0. -4 times 1 times -1? 4. And 4 times 2 times 2? 16. 4 plus 16? 20. So we have 30 minus 20, which is 10. So our discriminant of our coefficients is 10. So that's our D. Now we want to find D sub x. So what do we have to do differently to find D sub x? Awesome. Put the answers in for x. So we have 1, 0, 2, because that's our answer column. So we're just putting that in for our x column. Everything else stays the same. So 2, 0, -4, -3, 1, 4. So 1, 0, 2, 2, 0, -4. I just rewrote the first two columns on the outside. Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Awesome. So first, we need to find what our majors are. So what's 1 times 0 times 4? 0. What's 2 times 1 times 2?
4.
4. And -3 times 0 times -4?
0.
0. So we just have 4 for the sum of our majors. Now we move on to the minors. What's 2 times 0 times -3? 0. -4 times 1 times 1? -4. And 4 times 0 times 2? 0. So we have minus -4. What happens when you subtract a negative? It becomes plus. So what's 4 plus 4? 8. So D sub x is 8. Next, let's find D sub y. So what do we have to do differently to find D sub y? Plug the answers in for y. So our middle column is going to be 1, 0, 2. Our x column and our y column stays the same as the coefficient matrix up here. So I'm just rewriting these two the same. So just be careful when you rewrite these that you don't put the wrong numbers in the wrong columns. So we have -1, 2, 3. and negative 3, 1, 4. What should I do next?
Rewrite the first two on the outside.
Rewrite the first two columns on the outside. So negative 1, 2, 3, 1, 0, 2. What's next? Majors minus the minors. So what's negative 1 times 0 times 4? 0. What's 1 times 1 times 3? 3. And negative 3 times 2 times 2? Negative 12. What's 3 minus 12? Negative 9. So that's the sum of our majors. Next, we want to find the sum of our minors. So we have minor, minor, and minor. What's 3 times 0 times negative 3? 0. What's 2 times 1 times negative 1? Negative 2. And 4 times 2 times 1? 8. Negative 2 plus 8? 6. So what is 9 minus 6? Negative 9 minus 6. Negative 15. Alright, so that's our d sub y. Lastly, we have to find d sub z. So what do I have to do differently to find d sub z? Replace the z column with the answers. So I have 1, 0, 2 in my z column. The first two columns stay the same as our original coefficient. So we have negative 1, 2, 3, 2, 0, negative 4. Yes. Yes. How do I find the discriminant? What do I do first?
Rewrite the first two.
Rewrite the first two columns. So I have negative 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 0, negative 4. So now we find our majors minus the minors. So what's negative 1 times 0 times 2? 0. 2 times 0 times 3? 0. And 1 times 2 times negative 4? Negative 8. So our sum of our majors is just negative 8. Next, let's look at our minors. So 3 times 0 times 1? 0. Negative 4 times 0 times negative 1? 0. And 2 times 2 times 2? 8. So we have negative 8 minus 8. What's negative 8 minus 8? Nope.
Negative 16.
Negative 16. Gotta be careful. Alright, so now we can look at our answer. So we have d sub x over d sub y over d, and d sub z over d. So what's our d sub x? 8. What's our d? 10.
10.
What's our d sub y? Negative
Negative
15 over 10. And what's our d sub z? Negative 16 over 10. So we just simplify. We have 4 over 5. What comes next? Negative 3 over 2. And then? Negative 8 over 5. Awesome. Good job, guys.